This is Kayla Smolt with Mercer Co. News, and I am with 74th District State Representative Dan Swanson, and he's at his Woodhull office. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm here in Woodhull at my foxhole in Woodhull.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad to be meeting with you today. Okay, so let's just start right off with what everybody's thinking. As far as COVID goes, reopening, we just saw some information posted about our governor, JB Pritzker, wanting, well, with the phase-in plan, looks like it could be a year out before churches can meet again. Can you just speak to some of that right now for people who are very worried, really?
Absolutely. And everybody's worried. I'm worried. I've, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, and, it's just, it's shameful where we're at right now in the state. And it's even more to demonstrate how much he's lost touch with folks like you and I and other small businesses and just the people of Illinois. Yeah. He's announced the employment opportunities where he is going to help people get jobs. Well, if he just realized, if you open the state up, people have jobs. It's him that's preventing them from working. So that's just that's how much he's lost touch with the citizens and the people of Illinois. That he thinks the unemployment issues is because of the economy. Well, it's because of the economy, because he shut us all down. So if he would open Illinois back up and forget these phases, let's do it in a quicker manner. And people have jobs. I mean, we've got businesses out there ready to open their doors and the employees ready to go back to work, but he's denying them access to their employment. So to me, it's not a big unemployment issue. It's that he's denying access to their jobs.
Right. That makes sense. And I actually reached out to a few business owners before our conversation to ask if they had any questions for you. So that right away, that goes right into, I have someone with a business in New Boston asking, will he be able to enforce those licensing, threatening to pull licenses?
Oh, I think he's already demonstrated that at a few different businesses. And, a couple businesses received cease and desist orders. Another business was visited by several Illinois State Police. And I'm a great supporter of the Illinois State Police. I think they do a tremendous job, but they're being put in a position, just as our sheriff departments, just as our local police, to clean up the mess that the governor has created with this employment issue, with closing businesses. And, and I've got a letter, I just received a letter from Congressman LaHood where our 5 congressmen have said, if the federal government sends money to Illinois does not have the right to keep that money. That money was sent for those local governments and it has to go to those local governments. So a lot of overreach. And I've had, just as you mentioned, that business in New Boston, I've had barbershops call me and say, hey, I've been cutting hair for 30 years. What if I open up my business? I am there to support you opening your business, but do you want to risk losing your license? And that's my greatest fear, is that he's demonstrated the willingness and the ability to close businesses or open their doors. So it's just put us all in a difficult position.
Right. Is there any possibility of monitoring the virus on a county by county basis and maybe relieving restrictions based on county guidelines rather than statewide?
Absolutely. That's what we're arguing for. Carla does a great job there at the Mercer County Health Department, along with her team there, along with our EMS people. They have a better understanding and handle of what's going on locally compared to the governor sitting in his palace in Chicago. Sure, I understand that we do have some people who are leery of COVID-19, and I respect that. But once again, I think it's a smaller minority than what some would believe. So everyone has their personal preference. Everyone has their personal choice. Is how I feel it should open up to.
Right. That makes sense. So as far as where do you stand on the mask issue then? Do you think those are necessary for being in public?
I'm not a big fan of CDC to begin with, to be right blunt. I saw how their reactions to Lyme disease. Lyme disease has been around for many years,
Mhm.
and there's no cure or no treatment for that. And now when they came out with this COVID-19, initially there was no mask requirements, and all of a sudden they changed to say, no, you need to wear a mask. But yet the science hasn't really proven, I don't believe, that the masks are as efficient as what they so claim to be.
Right.
They also said, 6-foot distancing, but yet there's science. If we want to base this on science, science will show you that a sneeze will travel 12 to 13 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we keeping 6 feet distance? Why aren't we maintaining a 15-foot distance? It's just that that's my frustration is here CDC is supposed to be leading the way, but yet they contradict themselves so many different times of what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to be doing it. So I'm not a big fan of the mask, but I had to wear one this past week when I went to the doctor's office, but I haven't worn it. And it's the same one I wear in our hog building, so it probably had a nice smell to it.
That's great. Okay, so from your perspective, how are small businesses in this district handling the shutdown?
I think there's been a big run on pitchforks at our farm stores. I mean, that's where we're at here. People are wanting action, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later on what I've been doing. But it's to a point where people are upset, and small businesses are the backbone of Illinois. Small businesses are the backbone of Mercer County. Mm-hmm. We've got Mark Berry and General Grind. I mean, the tough times. So it's not only a local issue, but it gets global when we start looking at how it's affected the United States and how it's affected the whole world in the global fashion. And our local business is what sustain us here locally, and we need to have them open. So. Right.
Well, in fact, referring to General Grind, they do business globally.
Absolutely. And they've got a big footprint, just as our grain elevators down on the river. I mean, it's a global reach. And when we're seeing packing houses close, and we've got Biddle Farms there with their investments in our pork industry, and what we're seeing taking place there, it's very discouraging. And yes. It's small businesses are the backbone of our districts.
Right. And you touched on it earlier about federal funding. So do you think that we need the federal government funding, or is this more of a state issue if we were able to get the help in that area?
Well, I think some of the discussions now going on at the federal level, I mean, I've got my own issues here in Illinois I got to try and track, but certainly I keep an ear towards what's being discussed in DC. And one of the biggest scares I have coming out of the federal government is the tracing. We're going to start tracing people. That's got a price tag, I believe, initially of $100 billion, 100 with a B. And you talk about taking rights away, where we're going to be traced and tracked every footstep we take. So if we come down positive, they'll know who we came in contact with. I mean, that's scary when we talk about that. But yeah, I believe so far Illinois has got $4.9 billion just recently, and it's going to take some federal resources and to help us get above and beyond this point. And eventually we're going to see the other side. It's just we hope the other side is kind of what we remember from the past, and not a new other side.
Right. So that new normal term keeps coming up.
Yeah, and I don't like using that term. And a good friend of mine who lost a child, lost a 16-year-old girl. That's one of the things he refers to is that, when we sought counseling and grieving, they said it's going to be a new normal for you, and to respect those who have gone through that. I just can't use that terminology. I mean, it's in respect of those people. So.
Right.
And I hate to think of what it's going to look like on the other side from where we've been. But.
Right. So I know we've seen it somewhat across the state. Could Mercer County vote to open the county? And I guess, what does that even look like? When I try to do the research into it, I'm not at their board meetings, so I don't see what the reasoning is or what they lay out for an opening plan. Can you maybe talk to that a little bit, if people of Mercer County ask their board members to open?
Well, and I kind of alluded to that, is I've talked with mayors and county board members in Mercer County, and we've had some long discussions, and I've told them whatever I can do to support the effort. It's got to be a grassroots effort. But keep in mind those small businesses. How are we going to protect them when the governor comes in and starts taking licenses? What's going to be our recourse?
Right.
And when the governor says we're not going to receive any state funds, that includes a gas tax. That includes our local government funds from the state of Illinois. And can Mercer County survive without those? And to me, that's a big scare tactic. I hate how the governor has used that against us so much. That's what I caution them on. Can we survive? I saw today where some county is, Shelby County has elected to secede from Illinois.
I saw that.
So what does that mean? Can Mercer County not afford to receive funds for Mercer County schools or Sherrard schools? Can they not afford to get state funds and also those federal funds and the local gas tax? Any of those revenues that are sent to Springfield and come back from Springfield would no longer happen. So that's my biggest fear. But there is strength in numbers, and that's what we're trying to get as a larger group of people to do this. And then I would say he almost has to back down.
Right. Well, with so many counties too stepping up.
Absolutely.
So when does the House of Representatives meet again?
Well, we go back next Wednesday, which I believe is the 20th of May. Gosh, there's quite a few things we're going to be discussing. And I thought I printed out a list of what, hang on just a second. I got to reach my bag.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Or maybe it's best if I just bring it up on my computer. But, Madigan controls everything we have going on in Springfield. And he's kind of got his idea of what we're going to do. And he doesn't bring much up the vote unless he has the votes already aligned. So we go back to answer your question, we go back next Wednesday. We're to be in session Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Session will be held at the Bank of Springfield Center, the old Prairie Center, used to be called. And we'll see what happens there. There are some parameters that we have to follow. We're supposed to get COVID tested before we go. We're supposed to wear masks, and just some guidelines have been laid out for us. But,
right.
We'll see what next Wednesday brings.
Right. So is there any plan to either vote into law or dismiss the orders that the governor has put forward? I mean, where does his orders end? He uses those terms interchangeably, and I'm worried that we just don't know. What's the difference? Where does an order end and a law begin, and actually something we can go to prison for?
Well, and that's he's got some, we don't have any idea what legislation is going to be brought for us. But we kind of think there's going to be some legislation that will cover his backside based upon some of the actions he's taken. And those would be used going forward. There's several lawsuits out there that are pending.
Right.
Some have moved forward. Some have already been thrown out of the courts. So it's going to be a very delicate matter of what takes place. Keep in mind, he has a majority in both the House and the Senate, and that's elections do matter. 44 members of the GOP, 77 members of the majority party. It takes 60 votes to pass most bills. If it's a constitutional amendment, it takes 71 votes. So He's got 77 members. He can drop a few of his downstate members off to protect them, but still he has a lot of votes to do what they want. So people can log in and watch all of our activities by going to the ilga.gov website and watching live what goes on in Springfield. Our voice cannot be shut down. So a lot of the legislation, a lot of what you see and hear from us will be statements made on the House floor, and also, of course, through media. But it's hard for us to beat down votes. I mean, we're going to work that caucus across the aisle hard and stress to them that, hey, you've got small businesses screaming too, right? And that's how, I mean, we've got to go in this with a battle plan. I think our leader, Leader Durkin, has a good plan going forward. It's just going to be now to implement that plan going forward.
Can you talk a little bit more about that plan for
Sure.
anybody who hasn't heard?
And like I said, we haven't seen any legislation, but our plan is to be vocal on the floor and to work across the aisle. That's the plan for Springfield, is to be a voice, because they've got the votes. We're sure going to try and beat down as much as we can moving forward. But so.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm trying not to have as much an opinion when I do this as media. It's hard.
Please, Kayla, this is an open discussion, please.
Yes. Well, it's good to know that we have a representative that is listening to the small businesses and the people who are really frustrated about this.
And that's, I mean, like I said, that's our backbone. And we look across the 74th district. We look south of and west of Chicago. That's what makes up Illinois, small businesses, between the small business of agriculture, the small business of that that mom and pop's restaurant that's been in business forever, and now to think that it's going to be lost is and right now not to have the freedom to just go out and eat somewhere, not having the freedom to go to a local store and shop as opposed to going to a big box. So
right,
that's frustrating.
Well, right, and I was getting a lot of our business.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, they just opened everything up today, kind of across the board.
Yeah, Iowa opened up all 99 of their counties today. Wisconsin, you saw what the Supreme Court did there. They opened up their businesses, 2 or 3 days ago when the Supreme Court ruled. And, and so I know a lot of people ask me why I haven't filed a lawsuit. Well, there's a lot of lawsuits out there already. And as I remind them too, it's not, if I file a lawsuit, I would file it as an individual Illinois citizen, because every Illinois citizen has a right to file. Darren Bailey did not file as Representative Darren Bailey. He filed as Illinois citizen farmer Darren Bailey.
Right.
We saw his lawsuit. He was successful with his lawsuit at the local courts. Then when it went to the Governor Pritzker, after it was successful there, he tried to move it from the appellate courts directly to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said no, it's got to go through the appellate court system. The Attorney General filed his appeal. Darren pulled his lawsuit, rewrote that lawsuit, has now resubmitted it, and we're waiting for the appellate courts to hear the case. I think John Cabello, last time I talked with him earlier this week, he didn't know if his lawsuit was going to go much farther than what it had. He thought it was going to be beat down by the courts. So, and people think that Darren Bailey's lawsuit, because he's filing as an individual citizen, there were several who asked to get on with that legislation with him.
Right.
But his attorneys advised him that we will go farther in the court systems as you as an individual than if we try and throw more people on there. If Darren is successful, what it does, it hand ties the governors to write any more executive order type legislations. Because in executive order, you cannot single out one person. So if Darren wins the case, he wins it on his rights, but the governor cannot write an executive order excluding one citizen of Illinois. So
I didn't know that.
The whole state. Yeah, so it does have a lot of meaning to it.
hmm Well, thank you for explaining that, because I have seen a lot of comments on Facebook of people saying, "Oh, that's just for him, though. That's just for him."
No, it affects all of us
hmm
because, like I said, it hand ties the governor with what actions he can do because he cannot exclude one citizen.
Right. Thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay, so would you consider contacting the United States Attorney General, William Barr, on our behalf?
I would consider it, and I know several people have.
hmm
Um, I mean, that's something we can do. And yes, okay, I'll say yes to that.
Okay.
We'll get one written up here. But what I've also encouraging people to do is, some might have seen where the local or the down south Democrats had sent a letter to Governor Pritzker asking him to speed up the process. And I've asked people, you know where I stand, you know where Maureen and our local representatives stand, but reach out to those people who rely on Speaker Madigan's support, okay? And reach out to them and tell them where you hope they hear the voices of their small businesses too. And
Right.
contact their family in those districts and ask them to call those representatives because we can't leave any can't leave any stone unturned. So.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about, trying to find my note here, that town hall you talked about as far as food accessibility?
Sure. So I serve as minority spokesperson on the Food Accessibility Working Group. And it's been probably 3 weeks ago when we all read in the papers about farmers and the hog industry may have to start euthanizing or depopulating, I guess, our livestock and also on the beef side, because our slaughtering houses were closing down because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So one of the working groups, some of the members, there's 12 Democrats and 4 Republicans that serve on that working group. They started a discussion about, oh my gosh, all this and all that going on. And I said, do you mind if Farmer Dan steps in here and kind of clears what's going on? And I told him, this is what's happening right now in the ag industry. And I said, I've got cattle on my feedlots that I can't go anywhere with them because there's nowhere to take them. And one of the Chicago members said, well, bring them to Chicago, we'll take them. And that just proved my point that they don't understand that process. So I said, do you mind if I put together a panel of subject matter experts and we'll have a discussion the following Wednesday, which I was able to put together. Dennis Biddle from Biddle Farms was one of my panelists, did a great job. Gary Ace, a local farmer here, also serves on the National Pork Board. I had Dan Erickson, a farmer by Oneida who has hogs, but they're his own hogs. They're not a part of any larger farm group. Jennifer Thierry from the Illinois Pork Producers Council. She's the executive director. Al Lyman, who is a cattle farmer by Geneseo and also on the National Cattlemen's Checkoff. Jill Johnson from the Illinois Beef Association. And also I had Matt Gillick, dairy farmer, who served on that subject matter expert panel. And each one of them gave a 3 to 5 minute testimony about their own operations, and very, very good. It shared some great details, provided a great understanding to that working group, and unfortunately ended on kind of a bad note with some legislator who I won't name her name, but she did not understand what ag industry is about. So, but yeah, we had a great panel, great working relationship, and I think it really helped them open some eyes to what's going on right now in the livestock industry of what it means when we can't get capacity through our slaughtering houses. And so, it's really not a meat shortage. We've got plenty of meat. It's about meat distribution, getting the meat from to the plants and to the consumer right now.
Right. So I understand there's a rally tomorrow in Springfield. How do you feel about people standing up and protesting, being shut down, and maybe just disagreeing with what's happening overall and with what the governor's orders are?
You know, I get something that there's one of those canned emails going around about, we elected you to uphold the Constitution of the state and of the nation. And as a 27-and-a-half-year Army veteran with a tour in Iraq, I take great exception to being called person not upholding the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, then I say that's great. People can take the time to travel to Springfield and be a part of their constitutional rights. Unfortunately, I've got many other things going on throughout the district here with the farm and family issues going on right now, but I'll be in Springfield next week, and I hope to see people there next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Mm-hmm.
at either at the Capitol or at the Springfield Center, because that is the purest form of grassroots effort and the purest form. And these groups are not being violent, and they're being so underreported that
Yes.
they are making a difference, and they are being heard, and they are being seen. So
Mm-hmm.
let's pray we have some nice weather so we can get large groups again.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I did have one other question from sent in to me. So as far as the vaccine, are you aware of whether or not it will be mandatory? And if so, what would happen to a citizen who refuses? Now, I know this is an early question, so we're concerned.
And I think some may remember the fight we had in session early spring about the HPV vaccine.
Yes.
Which I was very, very opposed to, and worked very hard with several different groups to beat that one down.
Mm-hmm.
Also worked with a senator has a piece of legislation that would mandate, with no exception, vaccines on our children going to schools.
Right.
And once again, I believe this is another overreach on our rights. And I think this falls back on, as we talked earlier, about the tracing. I think that's one of those ideas. I don't know why people think Bill Gates is the most educated person in the world. He might be the richest, but he's not the smartest. In my mind, I can find many people throughout the district that are a lot smarter than him. And but because he says it, he's supposed to be knowledgeable about it. And with that $100 billion price tag on House Resolution 6666, it has mandatory vaccination and also the tracing. And that tracing is to ensure that a person is vaccinated. If you're not, some of the language says if not vaccinated, you may not be able to go into certain public places.
Wow.
And yeah, that's so far reaching that, we're kind of losing sight of what our forefathers fought for. When we talking about some of the rights and individual rights that we're taking away, religion right now. I mean, I've been going to church on Facebook for so long now. It's I want to go see the congregation. I want to see the members of the congregation, and that's our social points of the year or of the week, is going to church and seeing people. So yeah, that vaccination stuff, I don't like the words mandatory. Because of the Army used to require I take a flu shot. I still occasionally take the flu shot, but that's my choice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take it. That's my choice. And that's how any vaccine should be. My choice. If I'm not old enough to make the choice, it should be my parents' choice to determine if I should receive that vaccine or not.
Right.
So, I'm an anti-vaccine, and I know people hate me over it, but once again, it's all about our own personal rights and privileges as a citizen of the U.S. and of Illinois.
Right. Well put. So what would you like to talk about? What are you working on right now?
Well, one of the big things has been the unemployment insurance. We finally, most states have been doing this for 6 weeks, but this week we've been busy in my office with the Pandemic Unemployment Act, where now small businesses can apply through the IDES website and begin getting benefits for their unemployment time, been working on that. I still continue to work with IDNR on getting more of our parks opened up. I've got to make a call again today. I usually call early in the week and the end of the week to find out where we're at. Because we've got some parks that are just beautiful, wonderful parks that people should be able to enjoy as we get into 70 and 80 degree weather now.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was able to get the nurseries opened up. But yeah, I'm talking with the mayors, talking with the county governments, talking with a large group that just on Wednesday had a press release. I'm trying to make our counties a part of their 11 counties to see if we could join with them to be a larger block. Like I said, there's strength in numbers, and the numbers we have in the 3 counties of Mercer, Henry, and Knox that I represent, also along with Bureau and Lee County, our numbers look great when we start comparing them to other counties. So, I mean, our health department's been doing a wonderful job. The people have been doing a great job, and you know, it's just Knox County, the numbers wouldn't be so high if we didn't have Henry Hill having to report their numbers in there. So that's, I'm trying to help us get opened up, because that's what we need to do. But I'm also cautious that I respect those small businesses and don't want to force anyone into doing something that they're not comfortable doing.
Absolutely. So as far as the unemployment insurance, how does that work? I know it's an intricate question, but are you able to explain how it works for somebody who maybe has been part-time and then mostly independent contractor work? You know, there's so many different ways to make money. It's hard to quantify.
Right. Well, and I think your unemployment question is, if it does not hurt, let the unemployment agency determine if you should receive unemployment or not receive unemployment, is what we're being told, or what I recommend to people to do is, if your hours were reduced and those reduced hours are below the unemployment lines, then you are eligible for unemployment. If you do receive unemployment, at whatever rate, as I understand it, you also receive the $600 federal kicker on that. So even if you come in at the lowest rate possible, I think it's $124, you can still receive that $600 kicker. So anyone who's a 1099 employee or self-employed contract worker or gig employee should apply now for the PUA. And it's at the Illinois Department of Employment Security's website, but specifically look for those tabs that say PUA, because I walked through the whole process just so I could help explain it. Not an expert. I've got other people that I refer to as experts on this, but it's an easy system to walk through for the most part. But anybody and everybody, if their hours have been reduced or completely cut, or in some way, shape, or form. I had someone call me the other day saying they were a full-time nurse and a part-time pizza person. They lost their nursing job. They're unemployed from that. And then they've now been cut back on their hours for their pizza jobs. I said, well, let's ask. We'll ask the question and let the unemployment services tell us no.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And reach out to my office. My email, swanson@ilhousegop.org. Or the phone number here is 309-334-7474. And if we can't help, I've got a person at IDS that I can call, and he gets right on it. So, yeah, it's important.
It really is. Absolutely. And if I understand correctly, people have to actually go through the first part of the process to be denied benefits.
Correct. Right. Okay. Yeah, you have to first be denied through the independent unemployed system before you can apply for the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Act insurance. So it's a kind of a two-step process, but it's well worth the time to do it.
Okay. And do we have any hope of Chicago becoming its own district?
I don't think that's going anywhere. You know, certain legislation we're going to be talking about these next 3 days is going to be very pointed towards COVID-19. And very pointed towards one of the other areas is sunset. There's several statutes that have to be acted on every 2 years. Otherwise, they sunset. And so that's some action we'll be taking too. I also have some resolutions I hope to get passed recognizing some things. So it's going to be a quick 3 days. It's going to be long days, but it's going to be quick days.
Absolutely. So where can, you mentioned your website already. Where else can people find you? Your Facebook page?
I've got a couple Facebook pages. I've got a personal Facebook page. I also have my Dan Swanson 74 page. It's Daniel Dan Swanson, or I think it's Dan Swanson, State Representative, 74th District, or something like that. Come look me up. I try and keep a lot of information on there. Please, if I don't answer your question, be patient, because I think Julie, who works my office here, has been doing a great job from her fighting position. Is that I think we get 115 emails a day, probably 30 to 40 phone calls a day, and keeping up with that, messenger and messages. It's overwhelming at times, but we get through it.
What did it used to be? Did you used to get contacted that often?
Probably. We may, depending upon the legislation, if we're in session or not, but I suppose the average emails were maybe 20 to 30 that actually, had some action required to them.
Yeah.
And maybe 5 to 10 phone calls. I mean, during that time. So yeah, it's, and messages and messengers. I mean, that's just, I try to be so accessible that, it's important.
It is. It is. Do you have anything else you want to add to our conversation?
I don't, except, tune in to watch us at ilga.gov next week. From there, you can log in to watch the House or watch the Senate. The Senate will be in session too. Of course, Senator Weaver will be in the hot box too. But, appreciate the prayers. I know we have a lot of people praying for us, and I appreciate those too. And, a nice congratulatory email is also appreciated too. But and please make contact. Don't be afraid. And I do miss I just missed a big pancake breakfast at Keithsburg here just a few weeks ago, and all the excitement at I think Joy Day, and we missed a rhubarb fest. It's been canceled now, and
yeah.
I usually do 23 to 25 parades a year. This year I've done one so far, and it doesn't look like there's going to be too many. St. Patrick's Day, we were able to do St. Patrick's Day parades. So.
Right. And that was just when things were starting. That was kind of before, right at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Are they going to do it or not going to do it? But we were able to get it in. I think it's on March 15th. But so gosh, it goes back a long ways to what we've been doing now. So. I appreciate all you're doing to help keep people informed too, Kayla. That means a lot to have you out there in front of the public too, being willing to listen to them and help write their stories. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that. We hope your family as well is also. I've talked to your wife every now and then at board meetings.
Okay. Yep.
She's very sweet. So I hope you guys are all doing well.
Yeah, we're all doing well, and hope your children are too. I hope isn't a method, but I've been trying to get, because our publication offices have been closed down in Springfield, I want to get my reading program started up again this summer, and just trying to figure out how to make distribution. If I post it on my Facebook page, if people link to that or send emails out, but I think kids need to keep reading over the summer. So try and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know mine would love that. If we see it pop up on Facebook, we'll be involved.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.